Center for Natural Resources and Environmental Management is at 919 a garbage law. Fellow Ghanaians, please I crave your indulgence and patience to listen to me to clarify the statement about at 919, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Law 2016, passed under Certificate of Urgency almost midnight of 4th August 2016 as garbage, which I wrongly attributed to Harvard Energy professors at an event organized by Center for Social Justice at the Ghana Law School on the 28th August 2024. Mr. Chachi Chikata got agitated about the use of the word garbage and exploded at me in response. We belong to the same clan, and therefore he cannot never intimidate and frighten me with his legal background. The fact that he started his law education far back in October 1966 and has since been practicing up to date does not make him master of know-all. I have never questioned and doubted his legal acumen and prowess. To be blunt, honest, and truthful, I am not in the least impressed with his delivery on the upstream oil industry, except those who clapped for him when he was exploding at me because they have taken in and believe in what he said as the total truth. My sympathy and pity to them. On January 12, 2017, an international Ghana oil conference was organized at Labadi Beach Hotel by Ladder Institute, Open Society Foundation, and IBIS Education for Development, with the Harvard and Texas University energy professors and some PhD students in attendance. Professor Raymond Atuguba delivered the keynote address on the new Petroleum Exploration and Production Law and concluded by saying, the new law is garbage, which the Harvard and Texas energy professors supported. Declaring the law garbage was not directly coming from them, but from Professor Raymond Atuguba of the Ghana Law School. Earlier on in 2016, Professor Raymond Atuguba wrote and published an article in the Daily Graphic of 27th July 2016 titled "Do Not Pass the Petroleum Exploration and Production Bill." He appealed to Parliament not to pass the bill into law, which fell on deaf ears. Mr. Chachi Chikata came after Professor Raymond Atuguba's presentation, took his turn briefly, and criticized some aspect of the Act 919, which capped Ghana's sovereignty and ownership rights over the oil and gas resources. Mr. Chachi Chikata's criticism was a confirmation that Act 919 was not in the interest of Ghana. Therefore, Professor Raymond Atuguba was right declaring it as garbage. Mr. Chachi Chikata also told participants that Kenyans once asked him about what the hybrid system was, and he told them to concentrate on their production sharing agreement and acceptance of the superiority of PSC over the hybrid system. Mr. Chatuchikata's explosive responses to my comments contain intellectual deceit and falsehood, referring to physical regimes as mere labels, and that the contents of contracts should rather be our concerns. I am surprised Mr. Chatuchikata, who is touted as a legal luminary, does not know that physical regimes backed by law determine the contents of petroleum contracts and what accrues as government take to a host country. The U.S. Government Accountability Office defines government take as the total percentage of revenue taken from production, regardless of whether it is a tax, a royalty, a bonus, or some other method of taking revenue. The U.S. sets the minimum government take in the oil and gas industry at 42%, and it can rise above 60% under any form of contract. Ghana is currently earning under 21% of total revenue generated from the 3 production fields under the hybrid system garbage law at 919. Countries on the continent of Africa who have adopted PSA earn between 44% to 85% of total production revenue. Before production started on 10th December 2010, workshops were held across the 10 regional capitals to solicit views from Ghanaians as to how the first $5 billion from the Jubilee fields from the first 5 years will be spent. Surprisingly, Ghana did not earn the $5 billion after 10 years of production at the Jubilee fields, despite the fact that Jubilee fields generated $23.304 billion within the 10 years period. Ghana, instead, $4.735 billion, representing 20.31% of the total revenue of $23.304 billion under the Ghana hybrid system contract, because at 919 is garbage and with cost implications to Ghana. On the other hand, Ghana would have earned $14.005 billion from the Jubilee fields under Mr. Chatuchikata's PNDC Law 84, which supported the Production Sharing Agreement (PSA) as against $6.55 billion earned from the 3 production fields, Jubilee fields, 10 and Sankofa, in 10 years. This is the reason why Ghana is facing the current economic and financial crisis, because our government have entered into what Christian Biederman of Oxford Institute of Energy Studies described as bastard contract backed by a garbage law. From the posture of Mr. Chatuchikata, what is motivating him to be defending an exploitative and economic slavery law at 919 over his progressive PNDC Law 84, which supported PSA? Is it the $5 million contract awarded to his company strategic oil and gas resources by MODEC, the company that supplied FPSO Kwame Nkrumah to Ghana. It would interest Ghanaians to know that FPSO Nkrumah was a single-hull, very large crude oil tanker, S-Todo, which was delisted out of service and to be scrapped, was bought by MODEC for $46 million, converted into the FPSO at the cost of $160 million, totaling $206 million to acquire. Insured at meager for $225 million as the cost. It was leased to Ghana for 2 years at $226 million and later sold to Ghana for $750 million. What a rip-off, because the law at 919 governing the upstream oil industry is truly garbage. Mr. Chachuchi Carter, can you name a single country on the African continent that have adopted the hybrid system and they are happy with it? Were you involved in drafting this garbage after you were released from prison and granted pardon by ex-President Kufuor, which you refused to accept? Mr. Chachuchi Carter, because the Act 919 is truly garbage, the Ghana Revenue Authority is finding it difficult to collect over $3 billion the Jubilee Fields partners have evaded in their 10 years of operations. Mr. Chachuchi Carter, you enumerated in your speech a plethora of difficulties the upstream oil industry is facing. The root of these can be traced to the Act 919, the Garbage Hybrid System Law. This is confirmed by Dr. Amos Ofori-Kwao, former Chief Executive of GNPC, speaking to Joy Business at his book launch, My Footprint in Ghana's Black Gold. He urged Ghana to return to the oil production sharing agreement to accrue more revenue from hydrocarbon resources. According to him, the country's current contractual agreement for exploration is a bane to the development of the sector and the economy at large. This is a complete indictment of Act 919, not fit for purpose. And yet some NGOs, CSOs, and individuals are defending it. The new colonialism collaborators. I urge and appeal to Dr. Soji Tete, Chair of Council for the Center for Social Justice, to organize the public debate between Chachuchi Carter and Professor Raymond Atubuga, who actually declared Act 919 as garbage, to which the Harvard and Texas professors supported. Professor Atubuga will be the best person to tell Ghanaians why he declared Act 919 garbage. I'm also prepared to use my knowledge in petroleum revenue management accounting and profit taxation to prove to Mr. Chachu Chikata that at 919 is truly and actually garbage. Ghana would have earned well over $72.156 billion from crude oil alone without participating in the project. That is, not contributing to it by the end of the production life of the Jubilee fields in 2036, as against the $19 billion and $20 billion projected by the World Bank and the IMF, respectively, under the royalty hybrid system. Ghana is on the verge of losing over $50 billion at the end of the production life of the Jubilee fields alone, which holds close to 3 billion barrels of oil, valued at $180 billion at long-term base price of $60 per barrel, because at 919 is garbage. Ghanaians are being robbed by the foreign oil companies, FOCs, aided by politicians of the two major political divide and the elite technocrats in charge of the upstream oil industry. Mr. Kofi Wayo, some years ago, was hopping from one media house to another across the country and told Ghanaians we were not going to derive anything meaningful from the bad contracts our government was entering into. A former British diplomat to Ghana, Mr. Craig, also raised serious observations about the type of contracts Ghana was entering into. Mr. Chachu Chikata, you kept mute and never made any comments about the concerns raised by Mr. Kofi Wayo and the former British diplomat about the contracts not in favor of Ghana. To conclude, before Ghana can rise from the ashes, the level of intellectual and political deceit and falsehoods from both sides of the major political divide and think tanks, CSOs, and NGOs must cease and the truth be told. The coalition of NGOs and CSOs in the extractive industries are rather protecting the interests of the foreign companies against the interests of Ghana. Finally, I wish to use this platform to tell Mr. John Dramani Mahama and Dr. Bawumia that the resetting Ghana or rebranding Ghana agenda are just political slogans or conjectures to me. Ghana's economy can only be reformed if only Ghana can be bold enough to redesign our laws governing our economic policies to conform with the contents of the following UN charters, which Ghana has been a signatory to all these years. They are: 1. The 1962 General Assembly Resolution on Permanent Sovereignty over Natural Resources, GRA 1803. 2. Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of State, GARES 3282, 1974. Unfortunately, our elite technocrats and legal experts who are in charge of our economic policies are completely ignorant about the existence of the above UN charters. Ghana will rise to fame, but will crash like ancient Ghana. Fellow Ghanaians, please search and read words of admonition to Ghanaians on Ghana Web for full details of the above quotation. Fellow Ghanaians, thank you for listening. By Solomon Baokumi.